Okay, so I filmed this first one, and then I realized I got a name wrong because I get this guy's name wrong every single time I ever mention his name. So that's why we're sitting down to redo this. Last time I pulled my car in, it looked really nice. Me, Gunther, Pat, welcome back. I'm Pat. This is a Pikes Peak recap. Finished out our first real week of testing. Again, that stuff I covered last week was kind of an optional testing for everybody. Not everybody has to come out to that one, but we do see a lot of rookies, people who are first getting their feel for the mountain and wanting to get into the bottom and middle section. So this week, we saw quite a bit of action throughout testing. Definitely quite a busy weekend for motorsport. Maybe you didn't catch the Pikes Peak stuff because you were watching Le Mans or F1. Definitely some good racing all around this weekend, but you know me, Pikes Peak, Pat Curtin, that's me. Let's get it going. Anyways, getting into the Unlimited division, right? That's the one really pushing the limits of what cars can do up there on the mountain. We are seeing a lot more of the competitors starting to make their way out to the mountain. I did just see William Yang posting his Honda, getting all loaded up in the back of a trailer, getting ready to come out here to Pikes Peak. Other racers, of course, we do have that Robin Shoot. My man is always causing stories up there. We would almost call them a volunteer fire team at this point. Last weekend, apparently, I believe it was up in the top section, he did have a small tire fire. I believe that was in the rear of the vehicle. One of those rear tires caught. That's back where he has his engine and all that aero stuff. So cleared that body work out again, I believe, after last week with the oil line. But it seems that they did get that one attended to. Everybody seems to be safe from what I've seen. And we're wishing Robin all the luck from down here in Denver. So, getting into the Time Attack 1 stuff, we do have David Donner in the 000 Porsche GT2 RS Club Sport. That one was revealed, I believe, end of last week. Might have been right around the time I released that last video. I believe this is one of the coolest Porsches up there on the mountain. That 000 stuff, this is, I believe, their second year up there. They did work last year with Donner again and got him in a great car, but unfortunately, he did have some suspension issues right after the brake check zone and was unable to actually finish the run. So we're looking forward to seeing him finishing all the way up this year, and of course, a legend on the mountain there. You know, those Porsche guys, they know their stuff. They've been doing this before, long before I showed up to talk about what's going on. Of course, in the Time Attack division, we also have Jeff Swart working in the 935, the Road Scholars Pegasus Mobile 1 car. That is probably my favorite car ever to run at Pikes Peak, just because big-time car guy. The 2017, the reiteration of the 935 was a very, very cool model, and to be able to experience specifically that car in person is one that I'll always remember, especially in that livery. Mobile 1 is kind of the livery of Pikes Peak throughout the last 100 years, and it's cool to see Porsche, Jeff, right, all these big names all working together to continue that tradition up on the mountain. So that's one of my favorite cars. Of course, I'll probably be coming back to that. Big Jeff fan over here. So, other than that, talking about some of the other Time Attack guys, we did see Trevor Oweda doing some dyno testing on his Audi 4000. I believe that's the 84, 85? It's right there. I want to say Hackle's 83 in the S1, and then Oweda's 84 in the 4000. But getting that testing done, I did see that up on the dyno. Other than that, we will move into the one I've been calling Rookie Division, but it is the Porsche Pikes Peak Trophy by Yokohama Division. Definitely, I call it the Rookie Division because I think of it as kind of the best into Pikes Peak, right? A lot of these people still have tons and tons of racing experience, people like Lonnie Unser, and a few of the others running through there. I wanted to say George Hess, the third, is also running in that division, and he has run that division before. So it's not necessarily only rookies, but it is a great place to refine your knowledge of the peak. It's kind of a standard class, so everybody's racing in the same cars. While we don't ever say that people are competing on mountain, because it is always man or woman against the mountain, we do like to look at that one because it does kind of push people to compete at their best, right? Knowing that everybody's in the spec car, everybody's going to really push each other to do their best. And speaking of in that division, two of my favorite posters of the event so far that I've seen posting stuff, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, are Johnny Lieberman and Lonnie Unser, as I mentioned before. Both of them are absolutely awesome, especially Lonnie. She's doing a bunch of, it might be Lonnie. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. But she's done some great work documenting what the actual test days look like. She puts up some Instagram stories and kind of talks about, okay, here's where we're at, here's the plan, here's what's going on this morning, that kind of thing. So definitely go check out what she's putting out, because that stuff is a great documentation of this year's race and a really great experience to show off all the fun they're having up there at Pikes Peak. Other than that, the other racer I wanted to mention in that Porsche Pikes Peak Trophy by Yokohama division is Cam Ingram. I got a low battery there. Frustrating. Anyways, getting back to Cam Ingram, he is part of that Road Scholars team, so he does oversee that Porsche 935 that Jeff is running. He works for the Road Scholars. I believe it's a restoration and museum almost. They work in classic Porsche, lots of 356, Speedster, that older school type stuff, air-cooled, the real classics. So it's cool to see him coming back to the mountain again, really growing his racing pedigree here at Pikes Peak, especially a place where Porsche is growing so quickly as well. So it's good to see him back, and he's also doing some awesome documenting of what's going on up on the mountain. Cam Ingram, I can't remember his Instagram off the top of my head. It may be Cam Ingram. It may also be the Road Scholars stuff. So definitely go check both of those out. They do some great documentation of air-cooled Porsches either way. Getting into the open wheel division, where the Pikes Peak stuff, or the Pikes Peak, it's all Pikes Peak. Come on, Pat. The Porsche GT4 Club Sport division, I've been calling the rookie division. I would call the open wheeler division the veteran division. These are people who have run the mountain multiple times. One of the biggest is Paul Dallenbach. He is a many-time king of the mountain. He was actually featured on last year's program. He had the helmet that you would have seen on the 99th running. And this is actually his 28th year running at Pikes Peak, so he's been participated in more than a quarter of all runnings. That alone is absolutely huge. Huge congrats to Paul. We really want to see him do well. He is also, many people may recognize him better as the U.S. Stig. He was on the U.S. version of Top Gear, and he did drive as the Stig with, was it Rutledge Wood, Tanner Faust, and Adam, I'm forgetting the last name. There's so many names, so many people, so many humans. It's all happening. Anyways, getting back to the Pikes Peak Open Division, this is the kind of the stock stuff. One of my absolute favorites I'm really excited to see this year is the Acura Integra. This is actually a new coming model, right? The Integra was a very popular model throughout the late 80s, early 90s, that kind of stuff, but it did stop when it became the RSX and then fell off for about 15-20 years. But they have announced that a new Acura Integra is coming out, and it will be running here at Pikes Peak. So we did see that one roll into town last week with some livery. I don't want to say it's the full livery. We don't know. There could still be sponsor stickers, decals, that kind of stuff. So definitely go check out my Twitter. I did post a picture of that one. That actually came from somebody else over on Facebook. And speaking of Facebook, if you do have a Facebook, if that's still your jam, definitely go check out Racing Past Devil's Playground. It is, without a doubt, one of the best Pikes Peak documenting sites on the entire internet. It is run by a gentleman named Matt Carpenter, who is a few years older than me, but has the passion, really loves the race, and has done a great job of documenting it and sharing it with people throughout the last 10, 15 years. So definitely go check out Racing Past Devil's Playground over on Facebook. Getting back to the Pikes Peak Open stuff, one other cool car. I'm real into the Radwood culture, 80s and 90s cars. So I'm very excited to see that 94 Bronco, which is being run by Jimmy Ford. So you love to see a guy on brand running in the Ford Bronco. But watching the test days, that Bronco was really ripping, and it was cool to see such a low Bronco running on the mountain. Because right in the late 90s, we did see one of the most famous, I would say, was Leonard Vaschultz running in the Bronco. He actually did a stock car and a stock truck on one day in the late 90s, and they actually flew him back down the mountain so he could drive back up. There was a rule created around him because of that. But anyways, Broncos are cool. So happy to see him at Pikes Peak. Happy to see this one back, and we wish Jimmy Ford all the luck up there. So Other than that, I'm going to jump into exhibition stuff. In the last video, I did mention Gregor Blachon running in the TDI Beetle. I did note that he had been running that one for a few years, and it had been a competition between him and Scott Birdsall. Right, Scott Birdsall is moving into that, I want to call it the super light, and that is actually a triple turbo diesel. So there's 3 turbos in that system. I want to say they're, I am venturing to guess here, so I don't know. I would imagine that they spool not in tandem sequentially, right? Smallest one spools up, bigger one spools up, biggest one spools up, and so that way you have more power at the top end as you're flat out trying to get your way up the mountain. But I'm not sure how that turbo system works. Very cool to know that there's 3 turbos running in that car. And then getting back to Gregor Blachon, he is also running a 3 turbo system in a Radical SR with a PDK Porsche transmission. So it will be very, very cool to see the 2 diesels competing against each other. Those 2 guys have had some diesel stuff between Old Smoky and the Bug, and now they're moving into some much lighter stuff. So it'll definitely be cool to see how the diesel competition shakes out this year for the 100th. One of my favorites getting ready for the event. Real quick, want to spin back around to my 3 favorite posters of this last week. Again, I said Lonnie, I hope I pronounced the name right, Unser. Definitely go check her out over on Instagram, doing some great daily stories, what's going on over there. Reese Millen, he had an awesome photo from the summit where there is a pretty big bump that is not very well documented. Lots of people don't talk about the bumps near the top, but due to changing weather conditions, even snow right into June, being that it's up above, I want to say 13,000 feet, they'll get snow year round. That was last year. We were unable to run all the way to the top because there was snow and ice up near that top part. But that change in weather every single day, right? So in the morning it starts to warm and it gets a lot of sun, and then by the afternoon usually there is a storm rolling in over Pikes Peak. So that will cool the road right back down, and if that brings snow, that means that asphalt is going from 67, maybe even 70 degrees, all the way back down to 20, 30 degrees. So it's going through these huge, huge heat cycles every single day, and it's causing all sorts of, right, you think of like a typical pothole in your neighborhood, and over time just water and the change in temperature will make that bigger and bigger. But think about that at the top of a mountain at 13,000 feet. So this is a bump that competitors have been talking about pretty consistently over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's something that also changes year to year. So throughout test days, we'll hear people talking, okay, that bump's bigger, this one's moved, the line is changing a little bit just because of the bumps. So it's something that they're actively aware of, as well as the team is constantly watching that. But it is one of the cooler parts up near the top there, getting to see that year-to-year change and how the competitors work around that and compete with that. I don't want to call it bad tarmac, but up there at altitude, it goes through quite a lot. So worn-in tarmac, we'll say. Other than that, we are going to jump into more history stuff, hopefully later this week. We do have the full week now before testing gets going again, so I'm going to try and bookend that with some fun stuff. We'll maybe even talk about some older divisions, stuff that isn't still running on the mountain, and reasons as to why. And then one last thing, this was one of the coolest things this week for me, just because since I started working with the event back in 2019, I've always heard, right, throughout the 156 turns, there are quite a few turns that are named after people. I want to say there's Folly's Corner, there's a few different ones, and unfortunately I can't remember any off the top of my head right now. I know there's Brown Bush and Blue Sky and that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about corners that were actually named after specific individuals. And a lot of these names came about throughout the 40s and 50s and 60s, and a lot of these were given to actually bus drivers and teams that worked on Pikes Peak that actually weren't even related to the event. Anytime there was a larger accident, they would have to be documented, and a lot of that stuff would end up getting named after staff and stuff like that, right? Maybe you made a mistake at one turn and you went off, but then forever it was known as your corner. But circling back, I'm super excited by this point just because I did see it posted over on Johnny Lieberman's page. I don't know if Pikes Peak themselves posted it, but it was honestly one of my favorite moments from this week. They did name a corner after Randy Post. That is now called Pope's Pond. It is an area that is a pretty sharp right heading up a hill, and off to the left side, it kind of heads in towards the mountain there. So the road actually kind of drops and then levels out into a little bit of a kind of a field. There are no trees or anything like that. Maybe there was back when it happened, but I showed up after the thing. Anyways, Randy was running, I want to say 3-4 years ago, right? So it would have been maybe 19 or just before. And I want to say he was running in one of the Dodge Hellcat wide body, right? One of those big monster horsepower stuff before he moved into the Teslas. But he was driving that car. I don't know what actually happened as to the actual incident, but he did end up going off that left side, and being that the road dropped off, he went 10, 15 feet into the air, and I believe he was caught by some trees. And so the car went into the trees, and he landed there. But the corner was named after Randy Popst, and I thought that was really one of the coolest things to see. You know, I don't know of another corner being named in the last 5 or 10 years, so it was really cool to see that corner named after Randy, especially considering all that he's done for the mountain and the way that, you know, he's raced through the dirt, he's raced on the asphalt, he's raced electrics, he's raced high horsepower. He really knows his way around the mountain, and it is cool to see the mountain turn around and recognize him as well. So that is pretty much going to do it for us today. Thanks for stopping by. I've been Pat. This is the Pikes Peak news recap with Pat. We'll get rid of the top. We'll get a little 80 fly action. And I'll see you again next week. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, I'm done singing. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Pat. Have fun. We'll see you next time. Go watch some cool racing. Let me know your favorite car ever in the comments.